Okay, so welcome to SydDT number 89. So tonight we're very thankful to UserTesting. You've probably seen the logos around. So Lewis, Amanda, a few more of the crew. So they're sponsoring tonight and making it quite possible, so big thanks. That's why you're getting like the top tier food and stuff. So we'll be back to pizza next month. So let's just manage expectations there. So tonight we're really lucky to have Lewis, who is going to do a bit of a talk on some interesting stuff. And then we'll have a panel with Ivy, Amanda and Josh. And so we'll intro them a little bit more in a moment. And I always forget to introduce myself, so I better do that. So I'm Ben. I'm a designer, coach and a founder of Dynamic 4. We're a social enterprise and B Corp. And everything that we do is around how do we use design and innovation to help create the conditions for people and communities to be happier.
He's also one of our originals of the Sydney Design Thinking Organising Committee. And now that we've been running for 8.5 years and just hit out on, how many?
It's coming up.
It is?
There's a slide. So, dun, dun, dun. Yes, we hit 9,000 members in the community this morning. So, thanks to all of you for being the community. It's awesome that you're here. So just to kick off, if I get that to work, just want to acknowledge that we're on Gadigal country and pay my respects to elders past, present and future. So as I mentioned, a big thanks tonight to UserTesting for sponsoring this one, and tomorrow I'm actually meeting Lewis. I don't think, Amanda, you're going to be there. You're ducking that one. So we're actually going to take SydDT on the yeah, well done. So we're taking SydDT on the road for the first time down to Melbourne, and I'll be saying Syd, not Sydney, for all the time during that meetup. So they'll be the first one sort of away from home base in Sydney. So looking forward to that.
Are you worried that people are going to feel like geographically confused?
No, I think Melbourne, they changed their borders, so they claim to be the biggest city in Australia. They literally did that last year, so they actually have 5 million people in the city of Melbourne now, and we're only at 4.5, so there we have it. So I'm going to the Big Smoke tomorrow. Also want to call out Spark Festival. Who knows about Spark Fest? Almost no hands. Wow. Okay, a couple more hands. So Spark Festival's been going for a few years now. It almost didn't happen this year, but thankfully it's come together at the last moment, which is probably why you haven't heard about the program too much. So we're actually partway through it, towards the end of it. So it started on Monday and goes through to the 4th of November. Check out sparkfestival.co and you'll find out a whole bunch of other events, a lot of free events, sort of around startups, innovation, product, design, and pretty much all of them are in Sydney this year. So worth checking out, support the startup ecosystem, innovation ecosystem, and this meetup is also part of that program as well, which we've been doing pretty much since the beginning. A shout out to our organisers. So Zoe, Kylie, big waves, and then we've got Kate and Lucas who aren't here tonight, but also part of the team. So it's the group of us that bring us to you every month and do it lovingly. So the other thing. Is it not true?
Blood, sweat and tears. Dedication.
But the whole reason we do all of this is really for you and to help bring the design community and ecosystem together. So a huge thanks to everyone who's in the room tonight, but then also the other almost 9,000 members who are in the room tonight, but now that's the size of our community, as we mentioned earlier, passing that 9,000 member mark, and that makes us the biggest design thinking specific meetup in the world. So that's all, everyone here. So you can always go and rate the meetup, and thankfully everyone that has over the years, since we started mid-2015, has mostly loved it. So we're 4.x stars. So I'd like to keep that. So hopefully, but we're also very open to feedback. So things that you're going, wish you were doing this better or differently, then we're definitely keen to hear about that. And as we start rolling into planning for 2024, we'll be looking for feedback in an active way as well. But anything on your mind, come and tell me. Or Zoe.
Yes.
Any complaints, definitely take them to Zoe.
Department, so that's okay. But also bring whiskey. But it's okay. Bring honest feedback.
And so that's enough of that. And now we're into the fun stuff. So Lewis is going to come and have a chat about taking the guesswork out of product development. So welcome, Lewis. And over to you.
Thank you, and congratulations everyone on that special milestone. We actually heard earlier you'd passed it, and we upgraded mini burgers and Domino's to arancini balls of beef and sushi, so you're welcome. I'm Lewis. I head up our Asia Pacific region at UserTesting. Prior to this role, I actually led our international consulting team. So I worked for a number of years helping organisations embed user testing into their design practices as part of their process. And that's something that I've been focused on both in Europe and also in Asia Pacific as well. So we're going to talk a lot about certainty over the next 15 minutes. So as a design community, how can we bring you more certainty? In that the Hoover's not going to interrupt at all. Bring you more certainty in, are you building the right thing? Are you solving the right problem? Are you managing your conversation with your stakeholders around the customer? So this is a big theme for this topic. But firstly, it's probably worth exploring why we don't have certainty. So I've actually got a pop quiz to start with. And this is from an international survey that we launched with digital product professionals, so designers, researchers, product managers last year. And the question here, and we'll do a hands up, what percentage of digital development professionals frequently guess when making product decisions? Now, I don't mean blind guess, I mean your best professional guess. So, hands up, 15% of the time. Incredibly confident lady at the front here. 30%? 55? 70? What would you like to pick?
Oh, yeah,
90?
90?
Yeah. Great, congratulations, 55%. There's a free drink at the bar for you.
All right.
So 55% of the time, we're making decisions on behalf of our customers around what to build and how to build it, without having certainty that we're actually solving the problem for them. So, next question, design-oriented, you're going to love this one. What percentage of high-fidelity prototypes are not validated on customers? So you built out your beautiful prototype in Figma, Envision, whatever you're using. How often is it not tested with your customer? 19%? 30? Some good testers in the room at the back there. 62? 73?
Yes.
Right, sales team. The answer is 62. So,
I want to see your sources.
62% of high fidelity prototypes are actually never tested on the customer before they're passed over to engineering. And that's where it gets really expensive to fix and rework. So, why is this? You've probably all been in this environment, right, where we're building products and experiences faster than ever. You're being urged to ship really, really quickly. And because of that, we're making decisions faster at each step of the development process. And typically when we think about what information do we have about our customer, we'll have access to CRM that tells us everything about them. We'll have analytics that tell us trends, where people are dropping off along the journey. We'll also maybe run surveys and we'll get 4,000 responses back with loads of 7 out of 10s and think, what does that actually mean? But typically what we're missing is this human perspective, which is what we bring at UserTesting. And I was actually at the Forrester conference in Sydney earlier this year. Was anyone there? Amanda was. And I actually coined this term called detached quantification. So this is when analytics fails to connect to the human perspective. And I've actually got a really good story about this. So who knows Hungry Jack's burger chain, also known as Burger King in the rest of the world? So they launched a survey a couple of years ago back in the US, and they were looking to develop the options on their menu. Does anyone know the story? It's really good. It's one of my favorites. So they decided to launch this survey on a Monday morning, and it gave a range of different options what they could bring to Burger King restaurants. Now, I don't know about you, but when I wake up on a Monday morning, I don't necessarily think about a cheeseburger and chips. I probably think, I've had a big weekend, I'm going to have a salad. And salad was one of the options on the survey. So Burger King got loads of options back saying, I want to have a salad. So they were like, right, okay, we'll go away and we'll build a salad menu and we'll launch it in a select number of restaurants. They barely sold any salads. That's because of detached quantification. They didn't understand their customer in that moment in time. So that blend of quant and qual is really, really important. Why don't we have that? Why don't we have that human perspective? Well, if we typically think about research or testing, the traditional view of it, it takes a long time, it's really expensive, it doesn't move at the speed of the business. And those key personas, product managers and designers, they really struggle to have the facilities to connect with customers on a regular basis. How many people is that a challenge for in the room? Speaking to your customer. First go. No? Couple? 3, 4? And then there's a load of mistakes made if we actually don't validate what we're building with the customer. Who knows the COVID safe story? This one is crazy. Taxpayers' money, by the way. 22 million Australian dollars spent on developing this app that actually basically told you when somebody near you had COVID, right? But what they didn't test when they built it is the phone has to be unlocked for the Bluetooth motorway, and it picked up like, it was either 2 or 4 infections, so it was a massive waste of money. They built it really quickly, they didn't test it. And then there's some other examples there as well. And how we help organizations build better products is to change the cost curve by investing early. It's really cheap to innovate earlier on in the process where you will come into play in design. So if you're actually validating your designs with the customer, you're actually mitigating risk of building a bad product further downstream. And just to give you an example of this is a large global retailer. This is actually the head of products that we worked with. And I think it's actually a great quote. It's pretty simple. We should start with the actual problem by speaking to our customers. Rather than getting projects and looking for problems, we need to flip it around. And how many people does that resonate with in the room in terms of how your business works? Yeah, quite a few. And there's quite a lot going on here. But this was their original process at a super, super high level at the top, where the business priorities and survey CRM data were actually feeding what they built, so they weren't actually understanding why they were building it. They were making a ton of internal assumptions, creating a solution, doing some experimentation, going live. And they were risking about 400,000 Aussie dollars per sprint within this process. So, when working with user testing and bringing human insights into this, they now triangulate at the start. So they actually understand the problem in a lot more detail, and they use this understanding to talk to stakeholders about what to build, how to build it, how to prioritize building that. And then within design in the middle there, they can actually iterate based on the customer and validate the solution before it goes to experimentation. And in just one release, this retail actually uncovered a $1 million problem with one test, which is super, super powerful. So what does this actually look like in practice? I've got a fictional organization for you today, so none of you have ever heard of it. They're called Flight. So it's like a flight comparison solution online. They have a mobile app as well. And what they've been trying to improve as an organization, which is critical to their business, is the flight finder functionality. They're in a super competitive market. Their conversion is below the market average. So if we think about that phase 2, how could we help a company like Flight? It's really when you're actually innovating and building these prototypes, how can you have more confidence that it's actually going to fix that problem? So in this case, fix the drop-offs that are happening on that key conversion flow. So they were able to launch a study looking for their demographic, and the target audience was recruited in under an hour. So the vast majorities of studies in something like user testing, the field time is just a few hours. So you can actually launch a test once you've built your prototype in the morning, go for your lunch, maybe go for a little walk as well, and then you come back and the test is filled, which is really, really powerful, and it actually helps you move with confidence and innovate with confidence. And what I'm going to show you next is just a few of the insights that we picked out from this study, where people from our contributor network are talking out loud about this Figma prototype.
The round trip to me wasn't really noticeable. It's a bit like fake. The colour of it isn't really bold except like the other colour, and it's sort of really that loose round trip. I prefer it in return. I think return is a bit more of the nature that I would use, return journey, return trip, rather than
to be able to see price differences here. So I'm not just going to randomly start clicking through all of these to see the price on those days. I want it to have like a little plus, you know, in red plus 120 RP or minus in green, so I can see which date is going to be cheapest for me. I'm not going to would. This doesn't actually help me because I don't know where the front of the plane is, where the exits are, any of that sort of stuff at this point, or seat numbers. So this is just completely random to me.
So again, I like that it's showing confirmation where you departed from to arrival date and time, and seat and baggage, allowance, and flight notes, and the total amount. So I like this page. It's very easy to read and give me the reassurance that I am booking this.
So then, just under an hour, some actionable insights where the designer can go back and iterate on that prototype. A few key learnings with the round trip button, with the seat map, with the pricing on the date selector. Really, really powerful when you're actually looking and thinking, should I pass this across to engineering? Like, am I confident enough in passing this across? Or do I want to get some additional feedback? So, how do we actually change? What do we do to go about this? And I've just got 3 recommendations for you. The first is connect insights with value drivers. A lot of the time, if you use an agency to speak to customers, you do it in-house, you speak to internal stakeholders, A, it can be super, super time consuming, but B, we're also traditionally really guilty of not connecting it to the business outcome. So in the case of flight, that's increasing conversion. It doesn't always have to be about that end outcome. It might be about time savings. So hey, if we validate this earlier, we can save X thousand dollars in building this again and again each time we get it wrong, and so on and so forth. So that's really, really important. And especially in the design organization where traditionally we actually struggle to connect what we're doing to business outcomes. Ben, your clicker has run out of battery. I'll go manual.
It might be me.
Oh, did you override it?
No.
No, you're good. Oh, your battery's running low on your PC.
Is it?
Yeah, well, that's not good.
There we go.
I've memorised the slides, don't I?
The PowerPoint was turned off. We should last. Did it go next? No.
No, we'll try again next.
Maybe it was after that video. No.
Oh, there we go.
Is it that one?
Yeah, that's it. Thank you. You could be my slide guy.
Just give me a wink.
So the first tip is connecting to value drivers. Second tip is actually building human insights into your process. Again, maybe one of the criticisms of how we speak to customers in the past has been, it lives in a repository over here, nobody accesses it, maybe it's not even a repository, maybe it's SharePoint or Google Drive. That doesn't help the people that are building digital products. Where the insights need to be is actually connected into your ecosystem. So when you're whiteboarding and actually collaborating on what we build, you should be able to play these insights back in Miro and FigJam. When you're actually passing things over to product or engineering, you should have these insights embedded in Jira Product Discovery, and Confluence in your workflow solutions. It's really, really powerful in terms of giving people more visibility, but also in helping you build a customer-centric culture. Then over on the left-hand side, it's more about quantification. How do you actually pair up your digital analytics solution to understand the problem and the ROI of that problem, and connect that to the human insights to understand why that problem is happening? That's really important. The third one is benchmarking. Like, how many of you do benchmarking at the moment within your organizations? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A little bit shy. So we actually have introduced something over the last few years called QX score. As designers maybe use SAS++, maybe some of your organizations use MPS. We could rattle out a whole load of those. Typically these are attitudinal based scores, right? They tell you how somebody feels when they go through an experience, whether they'd recommend it. And we're typically missing the behavioural element. Can people actually get from A to B? Can they complete a task? In the case of flight, book a flight. And what QX score does is it combines behavioural and attitudinal to give you a score that can give you confidence on whether you go live with a solution. It can also give you a score that helps you to benchmark against other organisations and your competition. So this can be really compelling for you to take to stakeholders when you're thinking, okay, should we build this? Can we build this? Or maybe they're telling you to go in a different direction and you want to prove otherwise. So they're the top 3 tips. Then if you get really good at this, what can this look like in your organizations? Some of our customers actually have watch parties in the office where like these reels of customers speaking out loud, playback all day long. They also have tests on demand where anyone in the organization can go and speak to a customer. That was all I had today. Hopefully that's given you a little introduction into user testing. Pause on the clap, please. If you would like a free test, as well as sushi, beef pies, and arancini balls, you can also have a free test on behalf of user testing. And thank you very much. I'll hand back to Ben.
Awesome. Stay there for a sec. Yeah, sure. Thank you. Any questions for Lewis on all the awesome things you just heard? Shout them out.
Don't be shy.
Everyone's got absolute certainty all the time.
My job is done.
I'm interested in the integration with Qualtrics.
Yeah.
I haven't historically used Qualtrics a lot, but I've been looking at them as a supplier for the quantitative side. And yeah, I just wondered how this sort of one side of Qualtrics applies to the whole user testing as one is.
Yeah, great question. If we think back to that Hungry Jack Burger King story, right? They launched a survey, they got a load of context back, they couldn't explain the why. How the integrations work is you can actually plug in a user testing study onto the end of a survey. It doesn't have to be Qualtrics, it could be another survey solution. And then a percentage of respondents to the survey get pushed into a think out loud study, and that gives you the why behind the what. And that could explain some trends such as why people pick a salad over another. Yeah.
These customer feedback videos, have you kind of indexed them as well, or is it kind of random? In terms of, like your start point to look for various potential problems.
Yeah, great question. So every video is transcribed automatically, and then we actually have an AI-led engine that runs on the top of that, and it actually picks up friction points, and it picks up key sentiment tags as well. So frustration, anger, happiness, joy, etc. You can actually search by those tags.
When did you start doing the thematic coding?
Sorry?
When did you start doing the thematic coding?
I reckon, when did we release Sentiment, Amanda? A year ago? Year and a half?
Quite a while ago, yeah.
Yeah.
We also apply like smart tags, so we'll re-tag where we think certain things load up onto like a higher order construct, like trust, price sensitivity, things.
Yeah. The main driver behind building all of that was that more people are using our solution to test. So historically it might have been UX researchers, but now it's also designers, project managers, marketeers, and they're all very, very busy people, so they need more automation in their life. So we've built more templates on the front end to help you get feedback faster. And we've also built more technology in the synthesis to actually enable you to get to actionable insights quicker to help you make high confidence decisions in your roles.
So is that the software doing it?
Sorry?
Is it more the software can do it now, or is it?
Software you can do it now. Yeah. Sorry, is it a question? Yeah.
With the recruitment for tests, you mentioned that you can recruit pretty quickly, it takes about an hour for the study perhaps, but is that when, what about when, I guess, criteria are pretty specific? If you're like, I need New South Wales bushwalkers, or, something quite specific that's, related to your project, is it a broad enough panel that you can do that sort of thing, or, you're feeling a bit sort of random?
Good question. So over 80% of the studies actually fill within a few hours. And that's across a customer base that includes healthcare, banks, consumer tech, CPG, etc. So we can fill a vast number of use cases. If you ask for us to look for a brain surgeon, right, it might be a bit tricky. But if you are a B2C company or a B2B company of a fairly open demographic, like you're looking for small business owners, they typically fill within a few hours in Australia and also internationally as well.
And can you narrow things down to location, to interest areas, to...
Yeah, so you have complete flexibility with the recruitment. So you can use screeners to find people in New South Wales or Queensland. Yeah. You can find people that have interests, their family status, what sort of role they do, etc., etc.
How do you manage bias, the quality of the questions that are asked, and know, like when you're doing user testing manually,
Yeah.
back in those days, you people come in, you have a video camera, and you're looking at their eyes, and you see the movement and how they kind of react,
Yeah.
and understanding the full psychology of it. Do you have a vision in the future of using AI to see what your eyes are doing?
Yeah, good question. Maybe I'll just repeat that. So the question was how do you avoid bias, and also how do you take other factors into account like eye tracking, facial emotion, things like that. So one of the things I'd say is it's important to remember where the industry came from. Where you'd have people come into an office which already introduces bias, you give them like a crap cup of coffee, a few soggy biscuits, and then maybe they talk in a room with other people in the room as well, which always introduces bias. Technology like ours lets you speak to people in their own environment, which is supernatural, and that reflects where they would typically use your product or your service. And then on the questions bit, we've built out over 100 templates in the platform that have been built by expert researchers that we have in-house to actually write questions in a non-leading fashion. We're also developing AI that will actually tell you that something is a leading question. So we'll preempt you asking that question in the test plan, which is pretty cool. On the facial AI piece, I think that's on the horizon. We're still developing this transcription piece, and that's helping companies save up to 60% of time in synthesis. So we're developing that piece first, but facial maybe in the future. Yeah.
How do you stop the same person doing the same test like 16 times?
So there's an algorithm in the background that basically limits the number of tests that people can do. You have a feature that actually enables you to only speak to one person once a year.
Okay, cool.
So you didn't have to speak to the same person over and over and over again. And typically people take between, you'd think like, you always see these TV programs and stuff on how to make money, and you think there's people taking hundreds of thousands of tests, and there's loads of millionaires going around with sushi in Sydney, but typically, typically people take like 7 to 8 tests a year. That's
I do know, this was a few years ago, we ran some tests, different platform. Anyway, but we definitely had.
Well cleared up, thank you.
We definitely had. It was the same every week. Like I don't know how they were on it so fast. It was like the voice was the same, everything was the same, and the type of feedback he gave was the same. And it was.
One thing I'd say about how we handle it, so our contributor network, our panel, so to speak, is first party validated. So everyone who applies to join, you can go on our website and have a go. They go through a practice test, that's actually vetted by a human. So a person vets that, not a robot. And if they don't think their thoughts out loud, they aren't who they say they are, they don't come into our network. And as a customer of ours, if you get feedback and you're like, no, this is not great, or this isn't who this person said they were, you can give them feedback. We coach them. Second time that happens, they get removed from the network. And that's how we keep the quality extremely high. What's the metric, man? It's like not 80% of tests, 85% of tests are 4-star and above on a 5-star scale.
Who's the funnest one that you've had feedback from?
I'll probably let Amanda answer that question. Who's the funnest person you've had feedback from?
Like why? Like, what did the participant do?
I mean, when you forget to schedule a test and you're sending it out to like the US, it's like 3 a.m. and you've got someone like in a towel in their bed or something.
Organic feedback.
Yeah. It's just like there's been one time, dang, I should have scheduled that. So it was like the morning. But yeah. Nothing too outrageous, unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
Cool.
Very disappointing.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry. Cool. Well, thank
Awesome.
you for having me.
Thanks, Lewis. So we're now going to have a panel chat. And so I'll invite Josh, Ivy and Amanda to come on up, and I'll get the camera. First of all, this is their first SydDT meetup. How many hands? First timers, welcome.
They're all at the back.
So that looks a bit under 50%, which is probably in the usual ballpark. So welcome to all the new people. And Stokesy, I'm going to put you on duty. If we start having a little convo with ourselves and you can't hear us, can you yell at us and say speak up? Tell us to use our stage voice.
Do you
Awesome.
have a mic? Do you not have a mic?
No, we've got voices.
And we got diaphragms. So
Exactly. And so who in the room does design research as part of what you do on a pretty regular basis?
What qualifies?
You can shout questions. What qualifies? A question from Ivy. What qualifies from your point of view?
I was just wondering, like, is that your primary role? Is it a contributing part of your role? Is it something you aspire to do once a year? Like,
Who all you do pretty much 80+% of the time is design research? Still a few hands. And who does design research as part of an overarching designing products and experiences that customers love, which is our theme? A few more hands. Excellent. Who designs products? Anyone who designs products that didn't put your hand up for research?
Correct answer.
Yeah.
leading question.
I thought it was sort of implied. And what about service design? Are we still using that term? A few hands. Awesome. Good to see. Product managers? A few more? Yeah. Design leaders of various types? You guys are allowed to put your hands up as well.
Yeah. Are there any mixed methods researchers here? Just me. I'm the only one. Okay. Yeah. Okay, sweet. Yeah.
Good.
Okay, right.
Any other questions you'd like to know? Who does something completely unrelated to design as a profession? That's less than
normal. For the food.
That's less than normal, because normally we have plenty of people who wouldn't sort of describe themselves as a designer, but they're in.
Who works in tech? Not a large part of this audience.
Okay.
Interesting. There's a few hands that haven't come up yet, so any other categories that you'd like to shout out and represent? Startup founders? Boy, startups are dead in Sydney apparently. We just had this startup muster release this week as well. Any other questions you'd like to throw out so you know who's in the mix? Got a bit of a flavour?
Yeah.
Awesome. So, as I mentioned, Amanda, Ivy, and Josh. Josh is from SafetyCulture, Ivy from Canva, and Amanda from UserTesting. So, keen to hear from each of you. If you want to sort of intro yourselves a bit more, give us a short version of your life story. Probably not as far back as a twinkle in the eye part, but somewhere a little bit after that. And what's the product or service experience that you work on? What is it? What's the context? How does it play out? Give us a bit of the scene.
Do you want to start?
Sure. I'm Josh. I'm the head of design at SafetyCulture. SafetyCulture's a kind of Sydney tech startup that started about 10 years ago. It was one of the usual stories of two guys in a garage up in the back of Townsville came up with this idea that was to change the lives of all the frontline workers out there by helping them digitize what were really paper-based processes. And so that started with a really simple inspections tool that let them take what they were doing on paper into an app and use it on their phones and do it really easily. And over the kind of last 10 years, as the company's grown, we're now kind of a fully fledged operational platform that helps train teams, manage their assets, run analytics across everything that they're doing, automate their processes, track vehicles wherever they are, and really help all of those users that are on the front line. Often there's this huge disconnect between kind of old, painful enterprise kind of software that feels really clunky that a few people use, but really none of the actual people out there doing the work day to day are using. And for us, that mission has really been trying to give tools to those people that are actually out there on the front line that makes their lives easier, but also helps those businesses understand what's working and what's not, but more importantly, what they can then do about it. And that's kind of been that quick journey of SafetyCulture.
Awesome. And what's the role that you play in that mix?
So head of design, primarily I look after the product design teams. We have probably 27 different products in the kind of platform. We've acquired numerous businesses over the years as well. That's primarily looking after more. All right.
You can go to the front and
I
perform.
have to stand up and really just get the diagram going. So primarily looking after product design, but also our brand creative teams. We have a lot of our own internal VX teams and stuff as well. So basically everything that our customers see, whether that's in the product or online.
Awesome.
Awesome. Hi everyone, I'm Ivy. I'm a group products lead at Canva. I imagine a lot of you have heard of Canva. We're a design software company. Our mission is to empower the world to design, and what that means is really to democratize design software, make it super easy to use, and something quite close to my heart, to make people a better designer than they believe they can be themselves. So I think one of the joys of working at Canva is the love that people have of the product, and it's quite often it's really gratifying to see someone design something they couldn't quite think that they were capable of designing. My role in Canva is I look after the inspiration process. So a lot of what people come to Canva for is actually content and inspiration. So what people love about Canva, how we help them to make themselves better designers than they thought they could be, is often in the templates and the inspiration to get over the fear of the blank page, visualize your design ideas. Still can't hear. Visualize your design ideas, bring things to life. And so traditionally the way that we've done it is through templates in our content marketplace. But obviously in the last 12 months, generative AI has really transformed a lot of opportunities. So I look after traditional inspiration with templates, but I also look after Magic Design, which is our generative AI design tool that uses AI to actually create the templates so that they're quite specific to exactly what you've come to Canva to do that day. 3 million templates in the marketplace still can't be as specific as, for example, you've lost your parrot. Don't have very many lost parrot posters. Plenty of lost dog posters, not many lost parrot posters, but here, let us help you anyway.
And Ivy's been telling me for over a decade that she's not a designer, but she definitely is. And designing product, definitely your wheelhouse, even though you keep denying it. So I found it fascinating you saying you want people to actually think of themselves as better designers than they actually are. I hope you take that on for yourself as well.
Yeah, it was really meta, wasn't it, actually?
Yeah, I met Ben at UX Australia 10 years ago, something. Always wanting to be a designer groupie. Don't feel like I actually have any design skill or experience, and so that's actually why I ended up as a product manager. I was like, not good enough to be a designer, but yeah.
We're all our greatest road critic, aren't we? Yeah. I'm Amanda Warmerdam, nice to meet you. I know you all know who UserTesting is because my boss was literally just up here telling you. I'm a bit of a recovering academic, worked for quite a while in psychology, moved into, I would say, consulting and agency work, so I've worked across a huge number of industries and project types and audiences, and what I do now is work with teams across Australia and New Zealand and help them build out scalable approaches and programmatic ways of connecting with their customers. So, good to be here.
Awesome. So, when you're doing the work that you're all doing in your own context, which are all pretty specific and distinct from each other, who do you work with to get that to happen, to make it happen? Who are the different people, teams, stakeholders, customers? How does it all go down? How do you make it, bring the pieces together? And we don't need to go backwards and forwards.
Yeah.
You can jump in any time.
I work with real designers, you know how I'm like an imposter. More seriously, look, Canva's got a pretty common tech setup. We have very, very strong triads, I guess, inside teams, and that generally includes a product designer, a product manager, and an engineering lead. Product designers at Canva are, I didn't actually believe in product design unicorns until I came to Canva, but I certainly believe in them now. I work with some of the most talented people who span all the way from research, all the way to high fidelity Figma prototypes, and all of the experience in creating those interactive prototypes for testing. We are also supported by dedicated researchers, product marketers, and I don't think it's a surprise to many that our founders are also very involved, even as a 4,000-person company. When you ask about stakeholders, founders are still very involved in product development.
How do they get involved? What's that look like? Remembering this has been recorded.
Mel is the most talented product visionary I've ever worked with, and that's not just because
Love you, Mel.
Would you like to talk right into the camera?
What I mean by that is there have been numerous meetings and conversations I've been in with her where I've gone in with a particular point of view. She has disagreed, and I've gone away and gone, how can I convince her? And as I've worked through the argument, what I realise is that she's actually understanding our opportunity from a completely different frame or lens to what I am. So how do they get involved? It's a lot of feedback. It's a lot of feedback through every part of the process, from vision and discovery all the way through to sometimes very specific parts of UI just before launch as well. But yeah, I think I have learned and been humbled by, if I don't understand, take the time, she's not always right, but if I don't understand the intent of what she's trying to communicate, I have missed some part of context. I need to first understand that, and then we can have a good conversation about whether or not we're aligned or I agree.
Definitely. So now we've got to talk in that direction as well. It's a surprisingly echoey room, I guess.
There's a couple of seats at the front.
Come closer if you'd like to snuggle up. Thanks, Stokesy.
No worries. Process improvement.
There we go, snuggle in.
Absolute gods by just leaning in over.
Please don't do that. That's really going to put me off. Speaking.
And I guess we'll know for future reference that this room, even though it's smaller than the room that we normally use, is the acoustics aren't carrying. Awesome. So welcome to the closer crew now. So for Josh and Amanda,
I'll wait for
who are the players?
Before trying to shout out.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Who's taking on the role now?
I'll go next. We're very similar, typical kind of triad structures. We're a normal kind of tech business, so those teams are structured in a very similar way. We have researchers, we have marketing, we work really closely with our support and our success teams, our kind of onboarding managers and all of that kind of stuff. A big part of my role is often spending time crafting and articulating a lot of what that big 5-year vision is. So I spend a lot of time working with our teams as we think about the products we build next, those steps that we're taking that are really tangible steps towards the future that we see, but also making sure that the future that we see ahead of us is the future that our customers need. Often there's that big difference between what someone's asking for and what they truly need to make a difference in that. And so ensuring that that direction that we're always going is really well validated, but also as a business, we have all of the strategies in place to make sure we get there over time and we're taking the right steps in the product that we build.
Yeah, mine's actually a bit different and unique, and in that I've come from practitioner backgrounds. I've been a director of CX in a product company, but now I, within a week, probably connect with between 20 and 30 different types of teams, like product teams, research teams, design teams, who have problems in their process, problems in the way they're working, that are looking for solutions, and those solutions often extend beyond technology. The people are process oriented too, but my job is to try to help them solve those problems. And it's really interesting because I could speak to a top 4 bank in one morning, and then a mid-market fintech who are still in that go-to-market product market fit kind of stage, and there's still so many commonalities in the stuff that they're trying to do. So I work with a salesperson. I think most people here don't like salespeople based on some of the conversations that I've had. But really what we're trying to do and what we see a lot of teams doing is they come to us with like requirements or features, like I need to go do card sorting, and it's like, cool, but how are you going to get your business to buy this for you? Like, how are you connecting the value that you're creating to what you're delivering? And what does that look like? And so I have a lot of those types of conversations. Yeah.
Awesome. And feel free to chuck in questions, especially now that you're all so intimately close.
Yeah.
It's like the box in the opera house.
Just don't come up and tap me on the shoulder or anything.
So there's definitely similarities in terms of team structure and the types of stakeholders in the mix. You're sort of working across a very diverse and broader stakeholder group. When it comes to customers, what do they think of your products and how do you know?
Oh, I think you should take this on before me.
I'll start. I think we're really fortunate that our customers have loved the product. It's a really rare space to get in, a kind of very B2B space. A lot of our customers are in construction, they're in manufacturing or mining or hospitality, or often industries that are not affectionate towards technology quite often. And so we're really fortunate that our customers love us. As an observer coming into SafetyCulture, I thought, oh, it's really nice. You know, I'm sure there's that one or two, like, you know, customers that love you. But when I got into the business, I was like, look, where's the rest of the customers that have a lot of strong opinions on the product? But it was actually really surprising.
Who told the data set?
Yeah, it's really surprising to see that, like, oh, no, like it's almost everybody. Like it's unbelievable how many people love it. And it's those people that are on the front line doing it. We measure this in obviously all sorts of ways. The app is 4.7 stars on the App Store with over 16,000 like ratings. We obviously get that feedback through our customer support channels, but we talk to our customers every day, and I think that's been a huge part of how we've built the product over the years, is it's had to really solve a problem, and we wanted to know their business and their jobs and their industries better than they have, so we can build the right tools for them. And I think that's meant we've built that incredible relationship with them over the years. And that's led to building better products, but it's also led to a product that they love to use and that they're advocates of. I was chatting to Brad, one of our customers, literally last night. I'm going over to the US to see him, and he just could not stop raving about everything that we're doing and chatting about it. He's, you know, the head of kind of operations for a 10,000 person energy company in the US, and his favorite part of his day was when he came into the SafetyCulture app. Like, we're not paying you for this interview or anything, are you? But it's funny, you just see it day after day.
This.
Because it's, you know, it's often that space that has been so underserved. Like they're stuck there with often clunky old enterprise software. They've never had a tool that's actually easy to use, that feel like they can just get their phone out, take a bunch of photos of something that's wrong, or ask their staff, get 1,000 responses back to then make a really tangible difference to what's happening for that team. It's really cool to see.
You answered my bonus question as well, which was, and why? So I think you've...
I was going to say, do you find it hard to get constructive feedback in that environment?
Yeah, you do. You keep going out and you're like, okay, cool, but like, what could be better? And they're like, no, it's really good. Or they're like, oh, it'd be nice if like this process was different. I was like, well, that's a you process. It's like, you know, it's eventually like it's a form builder, and they're like, oh, it's nice if like the form was in a different order. I was like, yeah, you can do that. It's a form builder. You can just like reorganize that. Like, oh. So often the feedback's that it's hard to often get that really constructive feedback, and so there's a whole bunch of research as to how we do that and how we build those products. And there's still obviously the vocal customers that generally they want more. You know, you give them that one thing and they want the next thing. They want to do the next 10 features in a row, and so balancing that is the tricky piece, because we sit across so many industries, we sit across so many different businesses. What works for a mechanic who's there trying to fix a car versus a safety operations person looking after IKEA stores, it's very different how they use a task tool, but trying to build a tool that's agnostic enough to work for all of them, but opinionated enough to feel like it fits and solves the problem. That's the really tricky piece, and I think that's where you get that feedback from, where, you know, why isn't it successful? Why isn't it being adopted as well as we thought it would? Like, you kind of needed a task tool, but what are we missing there? And so we do a lot of conversations with them to really understand why, what they're doing, and what that best fit is.
Question was, how do we know what our customers think of our product?
Yeah, what do they think and how do you know it?
I think similarly to what Josh was saying before, even when I was interviewing for Canva, everyone was like, you know, one really special thing is how much people love Canva. And it is amazing. I mentioned Mel before as well, and with every feature launch, just the outpouring of social media love that accompanies it. But not only that, I've actually also been really impressed by quite a lot of love that we get in the press as well. So one of those feedback loops definitely is just like, people are very effusive in their praise, and it comes through in social media. Obviously, we also speak to our customers through every part of the process. We are on UserTesting, so we've got that feedback loop as well. And then also, even when we're going out to like trade shows and conferences, again, surprised by, we had a story of our education team being at a conference and they couldn't go to the bathroom because people were so keen to come forward to talk to them about Canva. But one thing that we do struggle a lot more with is that constructive feedback. And we get a lot of feedback about, oh, could this be in Canva? And part of that as well then is we actually struggle with discovery of the features, because a lot of that kind of like feature requests and so on, it's actually there. So again, it's difficult to get that insight into what people really think, because they're asking you for things that were actually released 6 to 12 months previously. I had another point, but I'm rambling, so.
So just like discoverability in the product is potentially a problem, or?
Yeah, I think what you were saying before about SafetyCulture, it's really trying to solve for this very generalized use case. We have a similar challenge in that, like I said before, our mission is to empower the world to design. When you have a mission that broad, there's a lot that can fit under the umbrella. And sometimes you look at Canva and like, we just pick up adjacent category after adjacent category. And sometimes, even as someone internal, that I feel as though we have no right to succeed in them. And yet, we do launch it to great love. But there's a lot that we also launch that is asked for, is useful, is valuable, but it's not necessarily getting that adoption because there's so much there. How can you possibly keep up with everything that we're releasing?
Canva is one of those few companies who gets like shout outs on LinkedIn. Like no one in that B2B is like, oh, I love you, like IOB, like you know what I mean? Like you just don't see the same like kind of adoption.
Okay.
Yeah, you're talking about like adoption of like as you're rolling out new product features and stuff. I'm curious to hear like have you had any feedback with Magic Design and like the AI powered tools? Like because I'm just thinking for me, I have been using ChatGPT and like when I think of a use case and I go and like try it out, I get so excited and I'm like, oh my god, it did this amazing thing, and I like run around and tell my husband and my parents and my daughter. But then it like it'll just sit there for a while, right? And I just won't use it, and it's like it's just a massive kind of I think learning curve, and it's like taking us. I'm just curious, like what how is it being at Canva rolling out these new kind of AI powered tools?
I think generative AI is so buzzy at the moment and maybe a little bit less just in that real hype curve that it was even a few months ago, but it's still there. And as you say, there's a lot of people who are looking at these generative AI tools as the new shiny toy to play with. And it doesn't actually make product development in that space quite difficult because when you're looking at numbers like retention, as you say, people go because they want to experience it and they want to play with it. But it's not because you necessarily figured out the need that it's going to fulfill in your life. And so if we look at retention, then we're like, how do we actually understand if a user got value from this particular product? Are they not coming back, or did they not, we often look at publish as a proxy to user value. Are they not coming back, or did they not get to publish because there was something that we didn't fulfill in the process? Or did they actually not have a job to do in the first place and they just wanted to see this cool thing that they'd heard about? So yes, we've had, it's a really positive thing. We get great media, great user feedback, lots of shout outs on social as well. And yeah, and in our user interviews, people love the vision and love what they're playing with. We had a user interview actually that they loved the product so much, they went and published what they did on social media, and we're like, there was an NDA there. So, I mean, they didn't say that it was an upcoming feature or anything along those lines, but like, yes, there's all of that excitement, but it can be a challenge again to know, have we created something of value here? And are people not coming back because they played with it and they haven't quite worked out where it fits in their life, or are they not coming back because they weren't impressed? Like, it's hard to get that signal.
And I'm curious because you're dealing with products that are so loved, how do you manage the risk of change might actually drop away some of that love, and how do you prioritize of all the things we could do, what will we do? You know, that sort of playground of how do you work out what's next and not mess with magic?
Yeah, I mean, it's always a hard one. We always have we try to encourage a pretty healthy appetite for risk and for trying really early and trying out in the field, because there's only so much that our really sophisticated research can do, and our customer, like the customers that talk to us or the customers that love it, there's only so much you can kind of do in that internal validation point. And so we try and get stuff out into the wild as quick as we humanly can, in a way that we know we're not necessarily closing doors on other options. So we went through a recent thing with this where our platform's grown over the last 10 years. It started as just kind of like inspections and actions and a couple of things, and now there's like 20 things in the sidebar, which is a separate problem to solve. But one of the core pieces was, we want your home, the home when you first land in there, to be the place where you do 80% of your day. You can do 80% of everything you need from the homepage, and homepage wasn't really serving that. And so, the assumption was, we want to redesign the homepage, we want to make sure everything's visible on there. There's huge risk with that because it means now the homepage has lots of stuff on it. There's heaps of potential things in there. There's a big risk in whether we can go down that route, whether that will actually work. And for us, it's just figuring out how do we slice that into as many small little slices that we can see what usage gets done. How can we look at all the hotjar and full story data that tells us where people are looking, what they're doing? Is it actually starting to change that metric or not? Are we running A/B tests on that? Are we testing on new cohorts, established cohorts? And it's just trying to learn really quickly, get it out there in the wild as soon as we can, without spending 6 months building something before we go and learn those things.
But how do you even work out what to do first of all, even with that sort of attitude and approach to risk of all the things you could do? How do you work out sequencing? That's most of our jobs. That's the meetings.
I'm a big fan of things like the Kano model. I'm a big fan
Where's
of
Eric?
Triangulating customer feedback.
Kano.io.
Oh, love that website.
Sorry, worth checking out.
Yeah, it's a fantastic prioritization technique and something that you can use to look at your existing feature set or potential future feature set. But I think what I was also hearing when you were talking, Josh, was the need for looking at trends and usage over time. We do a lot of cross-sectional research. We do a lot of let's check in with our customers today, and continuous discovery, talking to them every day. That is amazing. I know a lot of businesses now are using customer exposure hours as a metric as part of their KPIs for success. How many hours did we spend talking to or with our customers this week? But you absolutely need to look at this in a longitudinal way when you're thinking about features and prioritization. There's no way about it otherwise.
Yeah. What about Canva? How do you work out what to do when?
How do we work out?
Do it all.
All the time, every time.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the speed at which we launch new products, it's not just a joke. There is an element of it feels as though we're trying to do everything all at once, all of the time. Great movie. Yeah, like plug for Canva. If you haven't seen our recent kind of press event from earlier this month or Canva Create from 6 months before that, I work at Canva and I don't know how we shipped that much new feature within 6 months. So I think Canva is really lucky in that if you're looking at all of those opportunities, we have a lot of resource to go after it. And we're also set up in such a way that there aren't a lot of barriers. So again, like that attitude to risk, there's a saying within the company that we're only 1% of the way there. And so we don't, we're only 1% of the way there. We don't over-index on what we've achieved so far. Really, sites are always towards the future, and that does allow us to move very, very quickly. We have great teams, they can move at speed. In terms of prioritising, I don't have a good answer. I'm going through planning at the moment. And I think whenever you're going through planning, the process always feels incredibly chaotic. You yearn for something that is more methodical. You wish that you could just put a rice model or a Kano model or something along those lines over the top and you didn't spit out your answers. Working in Gen AI as well, I gave a talk last week and your typical way of prioritising as a product manager is to look at impact versus effort and maybe add in confidence. And what I find is that the space I'm working in at the moment, effort is unknown and non-deterministic. Impact is speculative and changes all of the time, like the actual value and what problem you're solving. It doesn't feel as though we've cracked that yet, and confidence is out the window. So what am I going to plug into this, like, you know, ICE matrix or formula? It's hard, and within that, I guess we're all professionals in our specialties. So I kind of go, let's go back to those first principles. So understand your users deeply. That's why I feel as though I'm always making guesses, but you're still doing it based on understanding your users very deeply, understand what actually drives them and creates value for them, what are the jobs that they hire your product to do. You de-risk things by getting it out early, small iterations, making bets. That's as good as we can do.
And is this familiar language? Is this sort of the approach and language that people in the room sort of apply? Or is some of this sort of, never thought about doing it that way? Or is this now at the point of common practice?
Like that feeling more than metrics, or?
I think, I mean, look, I was joking with Lucas before, it was like, Lewis, sorry, about, it feels as though I'm guessing 95 to 98% of the time. But I'm not just guessing in the absence of signal.
Right.
And so I think as a product manager, and especially in the space that I work in, I have to embrace ambiguity. That if I only look for certainty, we're going to be left behind. We're not going to move quickly enough. We're not going to learn quickly enough. So is it gut feeling? Yes, but as much as that gut feeling, let's externalize to signal, but don't expect certainty before moving forward. That's kind of
I think one of the things I often ask the team a lot when we come into these conversations is the thing that you're planning on shipping, this small little slice that we're looking at, do you love it? Not just is it an MVP, like the smallest slice you could possibly get it, but do you love it? It's a very different question to ask them.
What responses do you get?
And you get very different responses. Because, you know, it's quite an open question as well, because, you know, the design leader asking them if they love it, so do they expect it to look beautiful, feel amazing, like be incredible? No, that's not necessarily the case, because sometimes they love it for other reasons, and that's just as valid as why we should be going after it. Really good examples of that we've got an actions, you know, task management solution. The team wanted to release labels, right? Like, you know, tagging your actions so you can categorize them. Great. Very simple design solution. We all know what a tag and a chip looks like. Great. Do you love it? They loved it not because of what it looked like. They loved it because customers had been asking for it for years. They've been banging down the door about it. It's so much that they loved it because it was so small, so simple, that they knew it was going to have such a big impact. likewise, we had another example where we're doing a bunch of AI stuff, as everybody is, and our template builder, these big forms that you can build, we use ChatGPT to obviously power a bunch of that now, so you don't have to grab a template, you can come up with something. And the very first slice we looked at that for, the question was, do you love it? And the answer was, no, I don't think so. And the problem was, we would power the form would kind of build in the back end, and then we kind of like, here's your magic form, it's 50 questions. But if anyone's used ChatGPT, like the magic of it is when it like builds there in front of you, and you're like, oh, that's cool. Like, you see it happening, but that's like the little moment where everyone gets hooked and everyone finds it really engaging. We didn't have that in that first slice, and it meant we didn't love it like we expected we'd love an AI-generated thing to kind of feel.
It's almost that micro-interaction.
Right, that was a micro-interaction thing. So sometimes it's quantifiable, or sometimes it is about the design, micro-interaction. But when we start to think a lot more about, it can be the smallest slice in the world, but if it's a slice that we love, rather than as just viable, we think about it differently.
I think it's interesting. Like I love that you both are sort of like, customer impact is like made up of things that I can and can't measure. And I think that is true. I guess I work with teams all the time who are like, we know inside of us that you're both in high tech, you're in quite mature design and research businesses. I don't think that's the case that for other teams who don't have that buy-in from stakeholders or executives to be like, well, the team loves it, so we're going to ship it. Like that's just
Anyone else working environment that's supportive?
No, I love that approach. I'm just saying, like, I think like that you still do need like the data behind, like, okay, we had positive sentiment around this, or we saw like a 10% increase in this thing, like, and so just, I guess my point is, remember to like ladder those things up.
Which I thought what you're saying about signal, like
Yes,
there is intuition,
yeah.
but it's actually based on
And
data.
I think that what you're saying about like the gut stuff, I feel like your gut instinct is the unconscious unpicking of things that you know.
Yeah, 100%.
Like it's not just like completely random, and so I do believe in that as well.
Yeah, and I think like, I was venturing before about that idea of like how much is guessing. I don't think you can know 100%. You can do all of the testing in the world and still be wrong. And so I think expecting 100% confidence before you ship to learn, before you externalize to that user signal, you may be then over-indexing on confidence, but that doesn't mean